Welcome to our study this week of Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. My name is Scott Rainey. I serve with the Church of the Nazarene in the area of Sunday School and Discipleship Ministries International, or SDMI. This adult Sunday School video lesson is provided in collaboration between the Foundry Publishing, formerly Nazarene Publishing House, and SDMI. The Sunday School lesson is intended to support the local church's efforts to make disciples who make disciples. Please feel free to use this video in any way that helps your church and its families. Last week, we began a two-session study of the book of Ecclesiastes. The book of Ecclesiastes is a part of a genre called wisdom literature in the scriptures. In his own words, in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, the author declared himself to be the son of David, king of Israel, who himself was a king and who applied himself to a lifelong study of wisdom. The obvious reference to King Solomon reminds us of the experience of the young king who, when God visited him in 2 Chronicles chapter 1, God told him, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you," in verse 7. Instead of asking for wealth, long life, or victory over his enemies, King Solomon asked God for wisdom and discernment to govern the people of God. God gave him what he asked for and then some. Solomon became known for his unparalleled wisdom, the wisest man to have ever lived. Kings would travel from all over the known world to ask him questions and learn from his great wisdom. Wisdom is often defined as the ability to make right judgments, to evaluate evidence, and then to choose an appropriate action for life. Wise persons in the ancient Near East were thoughtful interpreters of the lessons taught by experience. They were self-controlled and disciplined. They were quick to listen and slow to speak. They were diligent students of life. However, the wisdom received and delivered to people from varying belief systems was not the same. The tone and conclusions drawn about life were not uniform. People of wisdom within the Jewish tradition, as was clearly the case of King Solomon, believed that the starting place of wisdom was to know and fear the one true God of the universe. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." Such a theological base for wisdom naturally leads to far different ethical and moral conclusions than the world would offer. So it's with this God-centered tradition that Solomon wrote Ecclesiastes. In last week's lesson on Ecclesiastes chapter 3, we observed King Solomon's honest look at the real world and the rhythmic up and down circumstances in which all people on earth find themselves. Solomon confessed that life on earth seems at times meaningless. Through these sometimes received as depressing words, the careful reader finds that God and God's perspective can permeate our time-bound mortal life with meaning and significance. The writer of Ecclesiastes found meaningfulness in a personal relationship with the one supreme and true God. Nothing else could satisfy the deep yearning of the heart. Ecclesiastes chapter 6 continues this same theme. The theme of chapter 6 is related closely to the theme of chapter 5. Once again, the teacher revealed that everything we have in life is a gift of God, including the ability to enjoy life and find contentment in it. So let's take a look at Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verses 1 through 12. "I have seen another evil under the sun, and it weighs heavily on mankind. God gives some people wealth, possessions, and honor, so that they lack nothing their hearts desire. But God does not grant them the ability to enjoy them, and strangers enjoy them instead. This is meaningless, a grievous evil. And man may have 100 children and live many years. Yet no matter how long he lives, if he cannot enjoy his property and does not receive a proper burial, I say that a stillborn child is better off than he. It comes without meaning. It departs in darkness, and in darkness its name is shrouded. Though it never saw the sun or knew anything, it has more rest than does the man, even if he lives 1,000 years twice over, but fails to enjoy his prosperity. Do not all go to the same place? Everyone's toil is for their mouth, yet their appetite is never satisfied. What advantage have the wise over fools? What do the poor gain by knowing how to conduct themselves before others? Better what the eye sees than the roving of the appetite. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Whatever exists has already been named, and what humanity is has been known. No one can contend with someone who is stronger. The more the words, the less the meaning. And how does that profit anyone? For who knows what is good for a person in life during the few and meaningless days they pass through like a shadow? Who can tell them what will happen under the sun after they have gone? In chapter 5, the teacher spoke of those to whom God has gifted wealth and possessions and the ability to enjoy them. But here in chapter 6, we have just read that God does not grant all people the ability to enjoy their wealth, possession, and honor. In other words, some on this earth have wealth, possessions, and honor, but do not enjoy them. It's not clear why God did not enable some people to enjoy their wealth. The teacher suggests that while God freely gives the gift of enjoying life, there are times when God does not grant this gift. He gives the gift of enjoying life, but some, for some reason, don't enjoy the gift. This is not unlike salvation. Salvation is given freely to all people by Christ's suffering, shedding of his own blood, and by his death on the cross. We call this the atonement of Christ. However, salvation, while freely given to all people, is only effective in the lives of those who repent and believe. This gift must be received. If you were to invite your Sunday school class to have dinner after church this Sunday for a free meal, some in your class would come, but not all. Some would pass up your offer for different reasons and not come for the free dinner. Similarly, here in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, God gives freely the gift of enjoying life, but there are times when this gift is not received. So these people have wealth, possessions, and honor. They have everything a person needs, so the world has taught, but they do not enjoy them. The Hebrew word used for enjoy in verse 2 is directly translated as eat. In other words, they have all they need, but they cannot eat what they have. Instead, someone of lower status, perhaps even an outsider, a stranger or a foreigner, enjoys these blessings. A second example is given in Ecclesiastes chapter 6, verses 3 through 6. While our first example was wealth, possessions, and honor, now Solomon turns to the concerns of the duration of life and the size of family. In this example, a person is described who may have had 100 children and lived a very long life. A large family and a long life are thought to be blessings. However, in this case, at the end of his life, the person in question does not receive a proper burial. A great start in life did not produce a satisfying finish. In ancient Near East cultures, providing a proper burial was a way for children to honor their parents. To not receive a proper burial would have been considered a grave injustice, no pun intended. Regarding long life, the case scenario is a man living 1,000 years twice over. What would be a great blessing of a long life would be a terrible burden if the person did not have the ability to enjoy those 2,000 years. In the end, those who are living have a choice about how to see their existence. Instead of hoarding wealth, being concerned about the size of one's family, or constantly worrying about the length of one's life, a person should learn to rest in the present and find the good in life. Solomon distinguishes between the ability to gain riches and the capacity to enjoy them. This distinction rests with God, for only God can provide wealth and add to it the gift of contentment. Being content with what we have is a significant way we can live into the perspective, the life, and the meaning God offers. Truly, satisfaction is ultimately a gift from God. Let me ask you today, what are areas of your life that God might be asking you to practice more contentment? I encourage you to pray, asking God to give satisfaction with what you see rather than a burning desire for what you do not see. In the last section of our scripture today, we move into this concept of human greed, humankind's desire to get what we do not have. This is a chasing after the wind, according to verse 9. In these verses, Solomon comes back to the issue of the greedy desire of humans who never seem to get enough. He compares the desire for gain to the human appetite, which never satisfies. While some wealthy people already have enough to enjoy life, they simply want more. Jesus tells a parable in Luke chapter 12, verses 16 to 21, which seems to have come from Ecclesiastes chapter 6. I would like to share it using the Rhyme Bible Storybook by L.J. Satzgast. Here's what it says. Once there was a wealthy man who had a very stingy plan. He put his money on a shelf and vowed to keep it for himself. He filled his bulging barns with wheat, and though he had enough to eat, he wouldn't share. He didn't care that others had no bread or meat. At breakfast time with toast and tea, he liked to sing this melody. I'm rich, I'm filthy rich. I'll never have to dig a ditch or slave away and work all day. I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. And when he, at his lunch at noon, he hummed a cheery little tune. It's nice to be, ho, ho, he, a man as filthy rich as me. Although he filled up every drawer, it only made him wish for more. I have 3 cats, but I want 4. I have some cows, but I want more. And when at last he had no room, this man began to fuss and fume until he thought, aha, why not? I'll build a bigger, better place where I will have a lot of space. But there is something he forgot. Those who get but never give choose a foolish way to live. When that night the rich man died, no one even cried. And what became of all his stuff? Those who didn't have enough stood in line that very day as they gave it all away. We learn a number of discouraging lessons in these last verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 6. First, our appetites are never truly satisfied, and our hopes are never fully realized, according to verse 7 and 9. Second, faced with the insatiable greed of the rich, the wise are as vulnerable as the fools, according to verse 8. You see, the poor and afflicted are helpless before their oppressors, whether they are wise or fools. Even their proper conduct will not change things. Third, according to verse 10, unquestionably, God is the one who rewards and empowers his creation to find contentment in life. Yet humanity is expected to accept their place in life and show responsibility in putting the divine gifts to proper use. Then in verse 11, number 4, words are ultimately meaningless and don't help anyone. And then fifth, according to verse 12, no one in their own wisdom really knows what makes for a good life on earth or after this earth. These depressing conclusions are hard words that challenge any illusion we might have of human self-sufficiency. Implied behind these words, however, are bits of wisdom that point to possibilities for life beyond just chasing after the wind. The wisdom comes in simple statements and sometimes in the form of rhetorical questions. Verse 10 says, no one can contend with someone who is stronger, and certainly God is stronger. Verse 12 asks, who knows what is good for a person in life? Here the obvious answer, God does. Again, verse 12 asks, who can tell them what will happen under the sun after they are gone? Again, God can. So what can we glean from our passage today? First, beware of living only to satisfy your appetites, consuming everything around you. Consumption never brings ultimate happiness. Even trying to consume wisdom will leave you empty. Second, learn to enjoy the temporary relative goods of life for what they are. Don't cling or expect more of them than they can deliver. Third, appreciate the questions that challenge overconfidence in our abilities or our status. As humans, we are finite and limited. Our world is filled with peoples whose experience of life on this earth is every bit as depressing as that described in this chapter of Ecclesiastes. So my question today is, who will give them a godly, alternate vision of life? Can you become a voice for true meaning and purpose in the life of someone who is searching today?